I get Carlos.
Just raise your hand if I don't.
Okay, I'm sitting up here with Dave, so.
Perfect.
See now, see this is coffee. I got this from this fine store up in the 200 block that I used to drink tea, and look how stained it is. Wouldn't you think that mayor would? Where are they? Hi. Hi, I'm Carlos Rita. How are you?
I apologize if I stink. I've been sweating all day.
Yeah, good luck.
So what did you do to impress her?
Two, right? Or three. Oh, so three. Carlos and Aaron.
So it says Jefferson City.
We've got water. Anybody want no tea? So water.
No, I gave up tea. I went to water. So
In the back there.
No.
I can get. We got it. We got a pallet. You want a pallet? You want one?
bring an extra one, Steve, and I'll.
I inhaled insulation today, so it's just
Got it. You need water.
Ooh, who am I now? Big Carlos.
So that's all I got to really do. Right now, it's a brochure.
As long as you don't put it, as long as you don't put it on my other.
retail price.
Oh, yeah. You're right about that. Customary.
I was gonna invite you over. I have a blonde show. But I don't charge. How about taking this one out of bronchitis? I'll tell you what, Tuesday I kept starting coughing. So I went down a little bit of my Dr. Drew's medicine.
It helps.
It does a good job.
High Street.
constant concern would rather talk with someone in the police department. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the Thursday, May 30th, 2019 joint meeting of the City Council and County Commission to order. Mrs. Donaldson, roll call, please.
Council members Fitzwater,
Present.
Graham, Hensley,
Present.
Hussey,
Here.
Kimna,
Here.
Mahalovich, Prather, Schreiber,
Present.
Ward, Wiseman. Commissioners Bushman, Helsher, Shepperly.
Thank you, and also would like to recognize we have some of our elected officials with us today. We have Representative Dave Griffith, Representative Rudy Veit, Representative Travis Fitzwater. We also have Representative from Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe's office and Commissioner Sam Bushman. Did we miss any of our leaders, elected leaders? Thank you all for being present today to get this information. This is a chance for us to go over some of our status update and informational update, giving us some of the latest news from the last week. So we'd like to start off by giving a public safety update, and I would like to start with Fire Chief Schofield today.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the Council and Commission. One of the first things we'll start with is the document that's on the display, and I believe we have a copy at each one of your stations, and we have extra copies next to the agenda. But what this is a listing of the different agencies that came out to assist us during the course of the tornado and flood. And I'm sure that we have missed individuals or agencies that assisted us, but this is our best effort at trying to collect that information and put it all before you, and just to recognize those agencies and the amazing lift and support that we got from all of those different agencies. So I wanted to start with that, and just to say that we know it's not a complete list, and that I'm sure there are some that we have missed, but we did our best to try to consolidate a list for you today for that.
Thank you for that list, Chief Schofield. It's been an outstanding representation from local law enforcement and across the entire Mid-Missouri region. And so we appreciate the list. We're continuing to add to it. I believe it was brought to the attention, we're adding, I believe, the state also on here. So we're going to continue to add partners, but we just want to show the amazing effort that has been shown on here. So we appreciate all the law enforcement coming together. And then also, I believe you have a report to give us with some maps and other data.
We do. As you'll recall, about a week ago today, we gave just a very, very rough sketch of some of the different areas that we were working on that morning. You'll recall that we worked throughout the night, responded to hundreds of 911 calls throughout the night, but then worked in earnest the next day at first daybreak to hit all of the areas that were impacted by the storm and try to touch each one of those structures, but more importantly, to communicate and make contact and have accountability with each one of the residents in that affected area. And so there's a lot of things we didn't know at that point, and we're going to show you here a map that kind of shows you some of the way we broke down that general area. And then very briefly, we're going to talk about how that process was refined over the course of the next few days, and some of the things we learned in the time since. So I'll ask Buster to go ahead and kind of walk us through his GIS storyboard mapping.
Sorry, this will be a little awkward since I'm having to look this way. So just kind of wanted to kind of go over the timeline of everything that happened last Wednesday night. So the tornado entered Cole County around 11:20, and then the EOC was stood up. I'm not sure approximately what time it actually was stood up, but this is just some pictures that we took while we were there. But the beginning incident area was crafted based off of 911 calls, so this was just purely us just kind of mapping out mentally where everything's at within our head, where we knew where we had calls coming in. This was the Alpha area and the Bravo area, and both of those within the city were about 1.5 miles of square miles within the city itself, and then the actual entire area within Cole County was around 40 square miles. So that's what we started with that night, with no one really having any idea where everything was affected outside of just knowing the area, as well as we're mapping out where all the calls were coming in. So then around 2 a.m. we started coordinating with police department and fire department to see what streets need to be closed. So then that way the fire department as well as the Missouri Task Force 1 could go through and begin doing their search and rescue efforts within the city. And they started that around daybreak, was around 6 a.m. and completed it around 6 p.m. Thursday evening. This information, they were going through and documenting, of the structure type, what was the condition of it at that time. Nothing structural as far as long-term things, but they were just wanting to know, like, can somebody get in there and rescue someone? That type of classification. And then the patrol was set up for a curfew. We went through and identified the curfewed area that kind of classified the main effect within the city. And then we had the patrol zones that were developed so that way the police department could know, who was patrolling what. And all this stuff was happening on Thursday throughout the day while we're continuing search efforts. And then also while that was going on, we were working with cooperating with the state. Melissa Johnson at Cole County GIS. She was doing the coordinating efforts with the GIS staff at OA as well as with a contractor, Certex, that went through and actually flew the area that we'd outlined within the county. And I'm sure you guys have seen some of the pictures, but I'll just kind of zoomed a couple of them. Like there's a Special Olympics area. And this information was collected Friday morning around 9:30 in the morning, and we had the data in our possession at 9:45 that night. So it was a quick turnaround for that entire area. They also collected LiDAR information, which is elevation information, so that way we could classify what structures existed, how high they were, if they had roof damage. All that information was then able to be classified based on the information that was collected from the plane. And then we also have the information that was given to us from the National Weather Service of the classification that they went through and did. That this is the same type of information that you would normally see on any type of news channel, weather channel and whatnot. So this kind of gives you the extent of the path of the tornado through Cole County, and then the triangles kind of tell you what sustained damage was on that structure. And then on Friday morning, we had SAVE come through, and that stands for Structural Assessment and Visual Evaluation. That started in Friday morning with the City of Jefferson within the 3 square mile area. And they completed that roughly Friday night at 6 p.m. And then they started in the county on Saturday, the following day. And so they worked through Saturday, and I think they completed their efforts in the county on Saturday as well. And then, so that information was then rectified by our planning division within the city. Katrina Williams went through and rectified the actual location so we could get the actual structure that the address was associated with, because we had multiple jurisdictions using multiple different hardware devices that collected data, different accuracies. So all that information was compiled, and we went through and mapped all the structures out that were either failed, right? Is that correct? Failed, and yeah, the red and yellow placards were mainly what we've focused on right now. And then Matt wanted me to show all of the debris that's being collected out at the landfill site for the burning of the vegetative material. So you can see how big that area is. That's Traco, and those little yellow dots, those are people standing there. So it's a large area that's been collected to date, and from what we've covered. So in a week's time, all that information has been compiled, and it is still being compiled to this date. So we're using this information to pass off to the building division, so in that way they can go through and start issuing permits and start monitoring that progress. And now that the tornado has passed somewhat, we're moving on to the flood. So we've got the flooding information as well displayed on the site that shows you at what levels each street will be covered with water. We're consuming information from MoDOT's traveler information site, so wherever you see the little red dots, that is information that's actually coming directly from MoDOT. So it's a real-time connection with MoDOT, and we've also have all the streets that we currently have blocked off with the within Jeff City that we have under jurisdiction. So, and with that, kind of completes our week, so to speak. So,
Thank you for that update. Are there any questions of council? And while we have the map up showing the flooded roadways, I know that it's something that several have closed even as of this morning with McCarty Street. So we're down to as far as east-west corridors, Highway 50 and High Street. So certainly recommending that people think about their route before they get out and about in Jefferson City, and that they are aware of how to get in. There's a lot of points of congestion, especially in and around this area, especially, with Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe being turning points off of 50 to get in towards that area. It could be coming, really both directions. That's a very congested area, so people may want to rethink, kind of going farther out and farther around the city if they need to access rather than just going straight through, perhaps.
sure.
All right, thank you for the map.
Yep.
And are there any other law enforcement? We'll turn over to the police department at this time. We have Chief Schrader and also Mr. Pat McCutcheon.
Is there anything in particular you were interested in?
Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
think that the two presentations were very effective.
You've covered.
I mean, as far as we were concerned, we were just very impressed that within a couple of hours, we had other agencies arriving at our EOC and participating in the response, and so it made it that much easier, and everybody came together, and so it was coordinated, I thought, as well as it could have been. So
Okay, so we've covered it.
we're in good shape now.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Bill Farr, anything to add from Cole County EMS?
I think, as we mentioned this morning, when we have our briefings at 9 o'clock within the Emergency Operations Center, we have, I think, about every member we can think of to be in there to share what happened the day before and set our objectives for the next day. So it's been very, very well received. I think everybody, it has some inputs so we can see where the problems are and try to help those problems out. So it's worked very well.
Thank you. This time we'll call on Deb, who is the State Volunteer Coordinator, to give us an update on the MARC and other things.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was asked, I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice a bit, so bear with me, please. I was asked last Friday to come and assist the City of Jefferson with mass care efforts, and I assisted in getting the Volunteer Reception Center established at the Capitol Mall. And throughout the weekend, we had, I don't even know the number, but a lot of volunteers come to that Volunteer Reception Center and go out and do good work that resulted in that pile of debris that was shown in the photo. We had volunteers from several of the nationally organized groups that came in, Samaritan's Purse, Missouri Baptist Disaster Relief, Team Rubicon, the Mennonite Disaster Services. Several of those organizations did quite a lot of work for us, and we're thankful for their assistance. That Volunteer Reception Center has gone to a virtual model now, and we can still access those services by calling United Way 211. Another thing that we did over the weekend was to establish a multi-agency warehouse that will serve as a distribution point for supplies that may be needed by survivors, and also is a location for drop-off of donations. And that's at Capitol West Events Center, 1315 Fairgrounds Road. And that started accepting donations yesterday at 1, and will begin opening the distribution site tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. This morning at 11 o'clock, we opened our first MARC, Multi-Agency Resource Center. There were, as of my last check, more than 100 families had gone through that Multi-Agency Resource Center, and they went to the 30-plus organizations there at that MARC to obtain services that could help them with their immediate and intermediate recovery. So that will be open tonight until 8 o'clock and tomorrow from 9 to 1. And Madam Mayor, is there anything else you'd like me to cover?
And you mentioned where it was that the MARC is
Oh,
at the
I'm
link.
sorry, it's at the
Okay.
link, 1299 Lafayette Street.
Thank you. So the MARC that's in Jefferson City today and tomorrow and Eldon on Saturday is kind of a temporary type of almost an event where people can go and get resources they need. So, and the difference between a MARC and the 211 is the MARC is for a couple of days. 211 will still continue 24/7, correct?
That is correct. And the MARC is a one-stop shop for them to access immediate services and answer questions from the Department of Insurance, to get supplemental nutrition assistance program, food stamps, if they lost their food stamps in the tornado. Those sorts of immediate needs can be met at that MARC. Long-term, if they need help either with debris removal or repair and rebuild, they can make those needs known by calling 211, and we will have voluntary organizations that can assist them with that.
We are hearing a lot about housing as well, so those displaced right now, I know there's the temporary shelters, and we'll have long-term needs that are for a different discussion, but do you want to touch on that?
Yes, I'm happy to, because we will do immediate casework based on what we see at these MARCs and any other information that we get on the immediate needs. What happens from that point forward is that organizations, in this case Catholic Charities of Central and Northern Missouri, has agreed to do long-term case management. And that is meeting individually with the individuals and families to find out what their long-term needs are, and that will include housing. So they will begin this case management as quickly as possible and try to address, okay, how are we going to help with intermediate housing if you're repairing or rebuilding? What's the long-term plan for rehousing? Do you need appliances and furnishings for that home once it's repaired and rebuilt? All of that goes into that long-term case management, and that can actually last for a period of years. But those case managers will stay with them throughout that long-term recovery.
Thank you. And so also for volunteer efforts, that is something that is being tracked. I know it's too early to have any numbers, but you are tracking volunteer efforts.
We are indeed, and it's critically important to do so, because when we receive federal assistance, there's a matching process that is needed for that. We receive 75% federal assistance, and we must match 25%, and volunteer hours can be credited against that match.
If they're tracked through the system?
If they're tracked
correct?
through
Okay.
211 or other systems. But 211 is the preferred system. They are familiar with exactly the right way to track those hours and ensure that we get every hour captured.
And what would the volunteer effort look like, for example, coming up on a weekend again and people may have available time? What do you suggest?
In terms of what they would...
Connecting volunteers with the needs, or people who are in neighborhoods that have needs.
Again, I would suggest that the survivors make that call to 211 and let 211 know specifically what's happening on their property. Do we have a large pile of debris that needs to be separated, vegetative versus non-vegetative? Or do we have other cleaning up of the yard those types of tasks. Whatever is needed, they need to let 211 know that. 211 can sort that into, this is a short-term voluntary project that can be accomplished right now versus this is something that needs to wait for long-term case management.
And then I believe Ann Bax had mentioned another organization, I think Samaritan's Purse was also, they were directing some people there off of Route C by Schulte's First Assembly Church.
Indeed,
that were
they
doing the
had.
same thing, and they also have the permission from property owners and that sort of thing to get on certain property, because I think that's another thing, people might see something that they think might needs to be addressed in the volunteer perspective, but just kind of going through a channel that they know it's verified.
Indeed, and I just encourage survivors. We in Jefferson City we hear it everywhere, but in Jefferson City, I've heard a great many people say, well, I know others need this help more than I do. My damage is less than someone else's. There is more than enough help to go around. So if you've been impacted by the storm, if you run into survivors or know someone who's a survivor, please encourage them to call 211 and make those needs known. If they need food or pet food or whatever the needs are, there is plenty of help. Please make sure that need gets made known.
Thank you, Deb. And I've heard the same comment from a lot of people out in these neighborhoods that feel like they'd rather, they know there's others that are really in need, and so, but like you said, we need to make sure they are connected with that regardless. So I know you need to get to the mark, and so I'm going to let you get back to that so you can get working there again. But does council have any questions specifically about volunteer efforts for Deb or anyone in, any staff or anyone else? Councilman Hensley? Sure.
I'd like to thank a group that hasn't been mentioned here, and they were an enormous part, close to 100% of the part of the initial response, and that's the members of this community who, as soon as a half hour after that storm hit, left their homes and went to help their neighbors. Foresters, master chain sawyers, who were on Capitol Avenue clearing trees from the roadway and helping people clear away and get out of their homes at midnight in pitch black, and they didn't quit, and they still haven't quit, and they're still finding more people to help, and they were among the first people to take loads out to Alagoa to start building that pile. And their service to their neighbors has been incredible. And they organize themselves. They put themselves into groups to go clear corners, clear blocks, all up and down the affected area. Tanner Bridge Road was one of the first because it was easy to get to. And they cleared that path and started building those piles so the city's crew could come in. And the city's crew has been doing an amazing job also clearing the vegetation. I'm not going to step on Matt's report because I know he's very proud of his crew also. But these folks who picked up their gear and in some cases had to hike into neighborhoods to find people to help, folks who were all on their own in these, just in the immediate aftermath. Because it was too dangerous to let large-scale groups come in, folks who found their way in to help their neighbors with the tools that were needed, and then who brought or came with their friends and their neighbors to begin getting stuff to the curbside so it could be picked up and cleared. Again, when that Algoa lot was virtually empty, and now it's incredible how much has been taken out there. But there was a time when it was individually organized volunteers and the city's crew sort of trading dump loads out there, and the hundreds and hundreds of them that descended on particularly the Jackson Street area, starting I think Sunday afternoon and all day Monday. Monday at dawn along Jackson Street was humming with chainsaws. And I think this has probably affected all of us in in a powerful way. This has been profoundly moving to me personally and to pretty much everyone else I've spoken to. So I want to thank those folks who needed nothing else than the permission of their neighbors and the need of their neighbors to go in and start clearing the way for them and helping with the recovery. So I just wanted to point those folks out because I don't know that they've gotten a whole lot of attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hensley, and for every volunteer, we are extremely grateful and thankful. So appreciate you highlighting all of our volunteers. And I know that council members are not going to recognize themselves, but I will say that there's been a lot of work done by council members that have been out in the field and working hard. I've seen Councilman Hussey with his daughters out and families, and all of you, whether you're able to or whatever effort or capacity you've been able to serve, you all have done that, and very thankful to that as well. Any other volunteer discussion or questions, anything for Deb before she goes back to the mark? Okay. All right. Thank you, Deb. And I know you have work to do. You said they're open till 8 tonight? 8 tonight at the link. So please spread the word. So are there any other reports from any agencies? Or we also have some city reports too. Should we maybe move forward with that at this time? We'll let Deb go, and we'll start with Mr. Sanders and then Mr. Marash.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just like to provide some updates. Some of them are probably little known, but our Environmental Health Division, along with Cole County Health Department and Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, they've been out to child care facilities in the area, lodging facilities, and food service facilities to check in on them, advise them of emergency procedures, educate them about what they should be doing, and just answering any questions they have. They went to about 40 facilities. The information Buster showed from the Save Coal, let me back up a second, getting ahead of myself. We're also anticipating a mosquito issue in terms of we're keeping an eye on the floodwaters, and we have some larvicide coming. We're monitoring that, and when appropriate, we'll probably be addressing that issue, so we're keeping that in mind also. Regarding the Save Coalition, that was a sort of a task force of about 20 members of different communities that mirror our building inspectors and property inspectors here. So we had experts from other communities coming as far away as all corners of the state, basically. Those placards that are out there, I'd like to make note that a red placard means your structure is unsafe. You're going to need a building permit to make it safe again, and you should probably contact a contractor, or if you need to, you can call our building regulations folks to get more information on that. That is a visual inspection. We have not gone in those buildings. That is qualified people looked at it and see, is it out of plumb? Is it missing a roof? Is there something wrong with the building that makes it unsafe to go in from observing it from the outside? So people should heed those red placards. A yellow placard means restricted use. The yellow placard will probably indicate what that restricted use is. It may be don't go on the back deck. It may mean something else. On many of those, they had power out, and our inspectors went back out on Monday and visited all those and left their business card and talked to owners. If your yellow placard building still does not have power, it is probably due to an issue where you would have to hire an electrical contractor, and they would know to call the building folks to work with Aaron to get the power back on. So I just want to make it clear that those placards are important for people that might be going back to those buildings thinking they could just go in there and access them. They should heed the placard and follow up on the contact information on the on those placards. Kind of related to that, we sent our planning staff out yesterday and today to visit the area and distribute those 2-in-1 flyer, letting people know, actually knocking on the doors and distributing them to them, so that the planners have been involved with that too. And also the other folks have been doing things. Our property maintenance folks have been going out there taking, and it's going to take several days, but documenting photographically using their SmartGov property maintenance software and their processes. So they're taking detailed photos of the damaged properties in the area. And then also a lot of other stuff I can't remember and don't have written down. But the important thing is for the red placard and the yellow placard properties, you probably need some assistance, and you're more than welcome to call us, but you probably need a contractor, and you will need a building permit to fix those.
Mr. Kroll?
And red does not mean that
Correct. Red does not mean it's going to be demolished. It may just need some work to it. It does not mean it's demolished. It means it is unsafe to go in based on the observations by qualified individuals.
Councilman Fitzwater?
There was a question raised at the Historic City of Jefferson meeting Thursday morning in regard to the red placard and folks that own the building being able to retrieve property. And I don't know, maybe it's a moot point, but I know it was raised and there was some confusion whether they could go and at least retrieve things from the building before it was damaged, and maybe that's already been accomplished. Can they do that?
We do not, my division, and I don't know if the police do either, but we do not have a way to enforce someone from going in that building. It is their responsibility to be safe entering it. Those placards also serve the emergency services people, so when they come across one of these buildings on a 911 call and they see that red sticker, they're going to think twice about just flying in there. I would let either of the chiefs address that further, but we cannot mandate that they don't go there. It means the building is unsafe. I know that's kind of a catch-22 situation.
Well, just a follow-up, does that give you what you were looking for the other morning, Donna, or do you?
Part of the issue that came up was some tenants were being told by the property owners that they couldn't go in to get their property. But if they're willing to go in into a unsafe situation, they can't do that. It's just not safe.
And if I may, we do not encourage or endorse anyone going into a red stickered building.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because I think there is some confusion, and I think you've been very clear in what the recommendation is.
If I may add, the tenants need to work with their landlord, the property owner, to get the appropriate qualified engineers, architects, individuals to investigate the structure of the building further before letting anybody in.
Councilman Hussey?
I actually have a question for Deb that I forgot about.
Okay,
Is that
that's
all right?
okay.
I'm just curious, with the mark today and tomorrow, and then it leaves town, is there an assessment that's made tonight about the number of people who have gone through versus the number of potential people that went through? And if so, what are the efforts this evening and tomorrow morning to make sure that we connect with people who may have missed today? I'm kind of curious what the outreach efforts were on the streets to communicate about the mark. I know that there was some church members from a local church that were walking them last night in the Jackson Street neighborhood. And my understanding is they came across quite a few affected people who were unaware of it. And so I just want to make sure, since we have just 2 days, what do we do between, is it 7 or 8 p.m. tonight, tomorrow at 1 o'clock to make sure everybody knows about it, or should know about it?
So a number of questions in there, actually. So we did do walk-arounds with flyers last night, and I should have made clear and failed to do so, sir, that it's not that those services will not be available after the marks, it's just they may not be as convenient. So, but if you, I mean, we have tried to spread flyers as widely as possible. If you think there's an area that we might be missing, we are happy to go out there and do some spreading again.
Okay, I guess, do you guys look tonight to see what the numbers were and then try to figure out? I mean, I guess my concern would be if numbers today were less than half of who we think should be accessing those services, is there some sort of like ramp up tonight and first thing tomorrow morning just to make sure we connect with folks or really push people to get there?
I think definitely we'll do that. When I tried to arrive at 10:30 this morning, there's no place to park at the link because the line had been forming since 9 o'clock. So and often we find that the best way is that neighbor tells neighbor, hey, I went to this great thing today and you should go tomorrow. But we will have a look at the the numbers. We will also look at the neighborhoods that those folks have come from. And if we see a glaring missing area, then we'll try to go out and do a better job of of hitting a particular neighborhood.
And it probably captures displaced folks. I mean, like Hawthorne Apartments, for example, there's not a whole lot of people living back there, but
No, but we have seen a number, so our SEMA does the exit surveys, and I surveyed a number of residents from Hawthorne today, so.
Great, thank you.
I'm pretty sure that they're aware, but I will continue to look, absolutely.
Thank you.
And I should also say that we have told everyone if the lines were somewhat long today, and we have encouraged people that if they were not able to get through everything today, that they should certainly come back tomorrow. Also, we've had folks impacted by the flood come to see us. That is fine too. And if they still can't make it today or tomorrow, Eldon is open to them as well. So we'll do what we can.
And the mark is for city and county residents. In fact, I think you mentioned even Eldon, any affected areas, or vice versa. Jeff City can go to Eldon Saturday, or basically it's not differentiated between areas, correct?
No, absolutely not. And again, both tornado and flood survivors are welcome.
Councilman Hussey?
And then I know that somehow, some way, Uber was donating, or somebody paid for some free Uber rides for people to get to and from the link. I don't know where the numbers are at on that in particular. If people have transit issues to get to the link, what's the best course of action for us to, or for them, or if somebody asks us about a transit issue?
There are some local faith-based organizations that are offering rides in church buses, so they should let it be known through the city or through 211 again, and 211 can let us know that that's an immediate need, and we'll take care of that.
And from the city's perspective, the city has provided bus passes that are on site at the mark. And so to Ken's point, after a couple of days, if they missed the mark, then they call 211 and get those resources?
They haven't, if they miss the mark, they haven't missed the services by any means. And if they call 211, we will get that case management started with them. We'll get that case management case open, and case managers are trained to walk people through all of those various services. So those services will absolutely still be available.
Thank you. And I know on transportation that Pastor John Nelson was very active today at the mark, and he, while we were talking, was on the phone getting access to other of the churches that had transportation. So for those of you that know Pastor John, I know he's been in contact with, I think, several of the organizations here trying to help coordinate that as well. Councilman Hussey?
And just for clarity's sake too, folks that need to access it, they don't necessarily have to have lived in the impact area. For example, over the weekend, volunteering at Love to Nourish, who was feeding 1,300 meals a day, a woman came in who had lost her job because she worked at the Sonic on Ellis Boulevard, but her residence was fine. But she still came in because she's concerned about her long-term, she's lost her job, she lost her paycheck. And so if individuals find themselves in those situations, is this still a place that potentially they should come and access
It absolutely
services?
is. And I should say also, we've had a number of people who have lost their driver's license or whatever their usual identification card is. If they bring any sort of a piece of mail or a utility bill or something that shows, we just need some sort of indication of what their address is, whether inside or outside the impact zone, if they have been impacted. But we do need some sort of indication of where they might have lived. And the health department, Cole County, is even helping to get birth certificates replaced. So we're trying to do everything we can.
Yeah, I guess in those instances, is somebody like Ameren or even our city wastewater on site, if it's a utility bill you need to show, it seems as though an Ameren rep could just look up a name and realize that, yeah, you are at that address. Is that a service, or do they physically need?
Most people have found some.
Okay.
Most people haven't lost just every piece of everything. So we have only had one or two people who seem to be pre-disaster homeless, and who have not been able to show an address, and we have worked with them as well. So we're not turning anyone away for any reason. We're providing all the help that we possibly can.
Thank you. And also, earlier, Senator Mike Bernskoetter also joined us. Thank you for being here as well. We'll turn it over to Mr. Marash for an update.
Thank you. And I think Jill's back there. If you could just maybe get the that picture up of the debris area. That I know Britt's going to want some of the pictures up there as well. But just to give you a quick update, we track this in a certain way so that we're ready for any FEMA assistance that we could get. And so I just gave you some data at your desk, but just real quick of what Public Works has been up to is wastewater plant and pump station all been operational throughout the storm, continue to do so. We do have to get our crew out to the plant, and so that's through some type of large vehicle, go through the water and get our crews out there and back and forth. So flood is affecting them in that way at this time. Transit-wise, basically all the routes are running, but they are deviating due to flooded streets. We have added, of course, the 2 routes to get state office workers down to the Capitol complex. One of the sites is at the mall again, and the other at the lower lot of MSP. We started with 2 buses, found that during peak times that just wasn't going to work, so we come up with a 3rd bus to help out, especially out at the mall. And in the last 2 days, not counting today, we did approximately 1,100 rides back and forth into those lots. So, and I gave you some man hours and equipment hours that it took to do that. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer. So that's kind of a summary of transit. As far as debris removal, which is the big pile on the picture, and I am proud of what our crews have done and far exceeded what I thought we could accomplish in this short time. But they have worked very hard, and we've had a lot of help too. So I'll just mention real quickly, primarily the street staff is doing this, but however, our wastewater staff crews are helping, parking staff is helping, Parks and Rec is involved in the effort, and then we had volunteer crews from City of Columbia, as well as Capital Paving sent a crew over and some equipment, and brought some trucks to haul things, and it's all going to this site. I'm talking about vegetation now. And so if you were to look at that site, we sent our surveyors out. This is what we'll have to do for FEMA anyway, but we have approximately 8,200 cubic yards of compacted material there, so the dump truck can't bring very compacted loads out. So we just try to equivalent that to, I said 1,600, it's probably well over 2,000 dump truck loads have been deposited there. And you can see Twee House, our contractor, has been doing a good job of keeping it very uniform and even so it can be measured properly. And so if we were to get that FEMA assistance, we'd be ready with those numbers. And you can see the little tracked backhoe there to the left in that picture. It'd give you some scale of how big that pile is, very large. And then we've got a new brochure out about debris removal and how to place it at the curb, and I put that on your packet, so this will go out on the website, and we've actually took some over to the Mark, left them over there for people to pick up. By and large, I think it's actually happening this way already from just a very brief press release I think we did last Friday, I think was the day that went out, but or maybe Thursday, but so by and large, it's going really well. People are kind of following this already. We just wanted to be a little more clear if we could. It's got a lot of verbiage on the back. If you don't want to look at the picture, but if you don't want to read that, you can look at the picture in front and get most of it. So that'll be out there. And so what we actually thought we wouldn't move into, we concentrated on the vegetated debris first, as you can see in the picture, but now we anticipated going to the storm-blown type building debris, not the tear down of a house that a contractor's doing or anything like that, but just stuff in the yard that people are picking up and bringing to the curb line. We thought we'd move into that next week, but we got ahead of the vegetation enough that we started that today, working on the storm-blown building type stuff, and that goes to the landfill. So we're hauling those to the landfill, and that has went fairly well today, so we'll be working on that tomorrow as well. But kind of gives you, again, this kind of demonstrates what can be there, what shouldn't be there, some of those notes. Again, not looking, this is stuff, the intention of this is storm-blown debris that's, laying in the yard or wherever, not for the whole household, of course. That's matter of your insurance agent and contractor, that kind of thing to deal with. So, working on that. Happy to answer any questions, or Britt has some flood update as well with this.
All right. Mr. Smith?
Yes, Mayor, if we could have the hydrograph put up showing the current flood levels. We put the hydrograph there on the screen. Currently, the gauge is reporting a flood level of 32.5. That is a few tenths higher than it's been, and it has continued to tick up through the day. They are forecasting a little bit of a decline, but it's not hard to see an additional increase, with the crest forecasted to be 32.8, sometime Sunday into Monday. That flood level for scale is just slightly less than the flood of 95, and is causing various road closures throughout town. And if we could pull up the flood viewer and just kind of give an idea of the roads that are impacted. As you see, primarily, well, obviously on the north side of the river, every road other than the state highways have been impacted. And then on the south side, the air impacts are concentrated through the Weirs Creek area, in the Mill Bottom through. And as the mayor said, it has impacted our McCarty Street and West Main, leaving only High Street and the Expressway as our major east-west routes. We put out a press release today asking employees coming from the east who are going to work at the Capitol Complex to please try to consider using the Lafayette interchange, the new Lafayette interchange, and approach from that direction to hopefully alleviate some of the traffic on the state highway down on the other east, the open north-south roads. Back to the flood conditions again. Obviously, the airport and sewer treatment plant are on the north side of the river. The airport has been evacuated and was evacuated prior to floodwaters reaching it. Our sewer treatment plant, as Matt mentioned, is in operation, albeit on an island at the present time. Affected properties, private properties on the north side, obviously there's a lot of impacts on the north side. I know Loft Equipment is still conducting some sandbagging operations, and as I understand, so is ABB. I've not been interfacing directly with ABB, but I believe Bill Farr has, if you have questions about their operation. South of the river, other than those impacted in the Weirs Creek area that I've already mentioned, we do have impacts in the Grays Creek area. That's the neighborhood on Geneva, affecting some backyards and basement areas, as shown here on the screen. And then also in the Boggs Creek area, with these newer higher flood levels, that might be impacts. That's the Lincoln Street, South Lincoln, and some areas in that area, some neighborhoods in that area. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you for those reports. Are there any questions for Mr. Marash or Mr. Smith? Mr. Councilman Hesse?
This is for Mr. Marash. A question on the debris removal. How long do you anticipate that service being available to residents?
Well, we anticipate going back to vegetation,
Okay.
you know, once we've gotten kind of caught up. We know there's going to be another slug of it this weekend, hopefully with volunteers
Okay.
showing up.
Yep.
There will have to be a cutoff at some point, and we haven't put a date on that, but we'll just have to kind of see how it's going and how the neighborhoods are coming along. But yes, there will have to be a cutoff. I hesitate to announce anything right now.
Yeah, I guess my concern, you know, especially on Tanner Bridge Road in particular, that, you know, I think John and I walked it Saturday morning and we were encouraging people to get the front stuff to the curb, but those backyards were still pretty filled, and it may be that the homeowner just, for right now, it was so hot this week, just didn't want to get to it, but got the front cleared. I don't want, if you came by and picked up everything in the front yard, should they assume that you might
There'll
come
be
back?
multiple passes.
Okay, thank you. That answer, I don't want somebody to think, well, they came by, that's it, now I'm on my own, and not get that stuff up to the curb. So thank you.
Councilman Hensley?
Sorry, just to piggyback on what Ken was just saying, yeah, there are a couple spots, one along the east side of Tanner Bridge behind the homes in the 16 and 1700 block, and then one along the east side of Jackson behind the homes on the odd side of like about the 800 block, where both sets of residents refer to it sort of as Jurassic Park. So I don't know how they both came to that phrase, except it looks like it was just all stomped down by something enormous. And yeah, I mean, it's there are a couple spots that are tremendous, sort of almost jungle debris level that's going to take a while to clear. But that and a few dozen huge tree stumps. But yeah, most of it's pretty well cleared.
Councilman Fitzwater?
Yeah, I just had a question, probably for the chief, based on Britt's report. Are the road closures causing any significant problems for rescue operations, Chief Schofield? I know you've got the one station on High Street, so you're on an artery in the news station.
Yeah, we have been doing roving patrols up until today. We discontinued that process today, and we switched gears to having our crews out doing pre-planning, essentially, and that takes a couple different forms. We're looking at infrastructure access, meaning how can we get to the buildings if there is an emergency situation there, and we have some creative ways that we're trying to do that. We're also looking at what things are accessible and where we know we might have problems with discontinued gas or electric service, and then where we're limited in terms of fire hydrant access. So, yeah, it's that along with the traffic is certainly a big concern, and we're just trying to make sure that we know exactly what's going on in the field so that when that call comes in, which we know that it will, that we're ready and can respond, and we're just doing the best we can under the circumstances. But yeah, all those access issues certainly impact all of public safety, police, fire, and the ambulance service.
Any other
I'm not sure if that
questions?
answered your question.
Okay. And then, do we have any updates from Cole County?
That's what I would, first, I mean, we're all one, but we had over 600 structures that were impacted by the tornadoes out in the county. So we have had SAVE out there. We've got the same markings and things on our homes out there. If you want to see devastation, go out Heritage Highway. We had a trailer park that just got wiped off the face of the earth. And the fact that we had, I think we have one fatality now, but that we didn't have multiple fatalities out there is unbelievable. Donnie Bronze, when you see that, it's so, looking at the map, it came through the county, a wide swath through Cole County. And, thank God for Bill Farr and for Larry Benz. So I'll let Larry talk about that. But I just, I don't think we've ever mentioned the fact that we had 600 structures that were impacted. I don't want to say destroyed, damaged, but they were impacted. And there's barns, there's homes, there's trailer parks. There was a trailer park. There's not a trailer park there anymore. But it's bad out in the county.
Mr. Benz, would you have anything to add?
To add to that, when we were going through marking these buildings over the weekend, they were not tagging the structures that were not inhabited, the barns that Sam alluded to, any shops, that type of deal, or agricultural buildings. Those were just residents out in the county. We basically have been through all of our roads. We've picked up all the debris that in most places that are out, that landowners have moved them out to the road. We're actually operating a burn site in the Eugene area. We've been able to keep up with our relocation. So what we haul in one day is burned up by the next morning. So we're doing well there. We've gone back to our normal schedule, which is 410s. We will have staff on a call if, something should arise. We work, Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday. We will have staff around on call that we can get out if we have any calls out over the weekend. Right now, we're in the process, like what Matt said, we've started picking up some of the debris that's ended up in our right-of-way, not necessarily that's people have placed there, but pieces that have blown out there. We've started picking those up. We're actually going to transport them to our site where we can sort it out. If there's clean dimensional lumber or plywood, we're going to separate that out and take it down to the burn site and get rid of it. Any metal products, we're going to be taking to one of the recycling places and trying to get reuse out of what materials we can. The remainder of it, the vinyl siding, the insulation, that type of stuff, we'll be doing the same thing as what the city's doing. We're going to be hauling it to the landfill. We've made arrangements. The city set up a meeting on Monday that we attended with Republic Services where we've got that set up and got the proper paperwork done where we go through. Right now, we've got over 1,600 hours of staff time in this. We're the same way with what Matt said. We came out, we had guys showing up at the shop even before we started calling people, just because they knew that there was the amount of destruction out. I personally can't say enough about the EOC. The people that were in there running it, they did an excellent job, and I'm not including myself in that because I wasn't there the first few days. But the people, Chief Schofield and Barry Guy, Kevin Weberg, those guys that were in there did a good job of keeping everybody focusing and going in the right direction. As far as flooding, right now we've got 6 roads closed. Those mainly are in the along the Missouri River down to Cold Junction. We've got some closed. Osage City, we've got several roads closed, and further upstream from Osage City on the Osage, we've got a couple roads that actually closed today where the water's getting over it. But hats off to everybody. Volunteers have been great. They've helped us out in the county too. They came up to the trailer park area and where we had the heaviest damage there. I know I stopped and talked with the Braun family. People have been down there helping them, trying to get their straightened up. The Brauns are handling their own waste debris at this time. They're hauling what they can't burn. They're burning on site. What they can't burn, they're hauling it to the landfill. So it makes you feel good living in the community we're in. Everybody seemed to pitch in, got out in the county. That's the way neighbors do out there. They get out and help people. We've had people helping, others. Lake Carmel, it's a private street. Had several homes damaged out there, and they've got it basically cleaned up. I'm not sure what they did with the stuff, but it's hauled off in a lot of areas. So, any questions for me?
Any questions? All right, thank you. We're glad to have this joint meeting with the county here as well. And do we have an update from MoDOT?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. We kind of want to reiterate, very similar to what Larry said about the county efforts. MoDOT was contacted immediately upon the tornado strike last Wednesday night, and we deployed 30 to 40 staff, numerous pieces of equipment to come in, and I will say hats off to all the responders. It's an unbelievable effort, the cooperation, the collaborative effort between all the agencies that were in here. We saw that also. There were no boundaries out there. There were no this is mine and that's yours. Everybody pulled together whatever needed to be done. We saw that throughout the entire evening, Wednesday night, Thursday morning. It didn't matter if it was a city street, a state highway, a county road. It didn't matter which agency was in. Everybody just pitched in and did what they needed to do to get emergency services in where they could help the victims and things like that. And that's a testimony to Central Missouri and the city of Jefferson and the folks that work and live here, and we really appreciate being able to be part of that as the community. But it was a tremendous effort. MoDOT was probably the least impacted amongst all of the three agencies, the city, the county, the state, just simply because we didn't have the number of routes that the other two agencies have. But Inside Jefferson City, obviously, we have the Highway 50 east corridor east of the tri-level and 54 down around Riley Chevrolet, Ellis Boulevard 179 that was impacted, and that's where we focused most of our efforts this week. We've had other maintenance facilities from around Cole County come in and assist us. Obviously Eldon was hit pretty hard by this tornado too, so they've been working on their efforts down there. But our California maintenance facility, Columbia maintenance facility, Lynn maintenance facility, they've all pitched in and been in helping us. Like I said, we've had 30 to 40 staff working every day, upwards of 20 dump trucks, 8 loaders, numerous bobcats, backhoes, and just a lot of hand work, picking up debris and things like that. That effort will continue next week. The same as the county, we're disposing of our own product. We're hauling the limb and debris, tree and debris removal products back to our Jefferson City maintenance facility out at Bighorn, and we're going to burn that also. We've already been through the process of getting all permissions we need for that. MoDOT's direction for the debris removal is pretty much exactly what the county is. We're removing all debris that was deposited on our right-of-way by the storm. We know that homeowners will probably bring additional debris to the right-of-ways. We don't necessarily encourage it, but we expect it. And we'll be going back over those routes like Route CC, Route D, AA, those out in the county, and picking up that debris. And then we're doing exactly what the county's doing as far as when we get it back to our facility. We are separating it between what we can burn, products that we need to take to the landfill, and then Miller Metal Recycling has big roll-off dumpsters out there. We're sorting out all the metal products and recycling that in through them. So a little update on the flood, just to tie on to what the city's saying with that. I know there are a lot of concerns about Highway 5063, better known through town as the Expressway, concerns about if and when that would go underwater. We receive numerous calls daily on if and when Highway 54 and 63 north in North Jeff City will close. But I'm happy to report right now, based on the forecast that we have through the hydrograph and the National Weather Service for rainfall amounts, that at this time, based on forecasts, we don't anticipate any additional closures on state highways than we have right now. We have approximately 30 inches of freeboard on the water, so we've got about a 30-inch barrier that it can rise and not impact the highways. And then from that point, it may start to impact them. Right now the forecast is for much less than 30 inches, so we don't anticipate any problems, but we have plans together to mitigate those should we be wrong or Mother Nature throw things at us that's not forecasted right now. So like I said, just the way it goes right now, we don't anticipate any additional closures based on those forecasts. So,
We hope not.
So do you have any questions for MoDOT?
Thank you. Any questions? All right, thanks for that update. And we also have, if there's, is Christy still here from Cole County Health? Do you want to run up here, Christy, just real quick, and give us, the Cole County Health Department is giving some immunizations for tetanus, because that's important. Do you want to say where those are available?
So whether people are impacted by the tornado, clearing debris, or floodwaters, tetanus is a real concern. So we have free vaccine. It's available at the health department. We also have staff at the MARC today and tomorrow giving that vaccine. If there's agencies that need assistance with a number of staff, we're actually going to be at the city tomorrow. We've already been to Cole County Public Works. We've been to MoDOT. So we can come to you if there's a number of staff. It's just easier. Just need to contact us. You can email me or one of our staff. Call us. It's 636-2181, and we'll do what we can.
Can I give Sam his shot?
Sure. Well, we got some square needles. So.
Councilwoman Ward?
Is there a way we can go into that neighborhood and provide those shots? Because as I've been up in there, there are people that were injured and they are not seeking care, and one was due to glass in the bottom foot, and I was afraid for the infection, and I offered to take him, but I think, they're untrusting, they don't have money, perhaps, or a way to get there. They may not have had a car, and if they did, it's, totaled in front of their house. So is there a way we can get in there and offer that type of care?
We can talk about that, but if they do have a wound, they need to seek some wound care, and if they don't have resources, the Community Health Center of Central Missouri, right on Christie Drive, 1511 Christie Drive, has community health workers. They can help with the transportation and make sure to get them in for that wound care, and they would go ahead and do the tetanus at that time. So there are resources available, so if you need help with that, you could call the Community Health Center, or you could call us, and we could facilitate that.
Well, now that I know, I would take them there, so it's good to know
I would take them there, because they have a sliding scale if they don't have the means to pay for that doctor's appointment. They can help with that.
Okay, thank you.
They have a community health worker at the Mark also.
Well, and is this information, being provided within the neighborhood, and if not, there's a facility very close to that neighborhood that is seeing a lot of these victims? I'd like to get some of these to provide it to that organization, and also, maybe a flyer regarding
tetanus,
the care that, so they know that it's free, because
they don't know right now.
Right.
We can help with that.
Okay, thank you.
So afterwards, we'll make sure and get Councilwoman Ward some of these flyers,
The
which are,
211.
I forget who has them, and they're in here, right? One of you.
Right.
We have them. Okay, they're on the front desk out there. We've got several of them, so we'll make sure you get them when you leave.
Okay, because this organization yesterday was handing out, a one-page flyer regarding the clinics going on at the Mark, and the meetings, the meeting today and tomorrow, telling them they have to go here or you won't receive federal assistance. So, that's kind of like ground zero there, and that's where the people are going. They can walk there. So I think we really need to focus, where these victims are, instead of, being around them and them not having a way to get there or not even knowing about it.
Right. And I think utilizing those community health workers at the from the Community Health Center will be a great tool for that.
All right, any other questions for Christy? Thank you. Thank you for being here. I know earlier we had Ann Bax from United Way, we had Lieutenant Christopher from Salvation Army. We've been working closely with all of them and the Red Cross. Are there any other agencies or announcements in the audience that need to be made that I missed? Chief
If I could,
Schofield?
Madam Mayor, the Cole County Fire Protection District was here, and they had to leave, but Chief Wayne Hammond was here, and they've been providing suppression services for that big area you saw that we called the Charlie Division. We were Alpha and Bravo in the city, but that's a really wide swath that was on that map. And so they've been doing that since the beginning. And their phone number, if anybody needs help from them, non-emergency line, obviously, 634-9011, easy to remember. So
Great, we appreciate that. At this time, I know there's a couple bills that we have introduced, but some of you are going to probably may need to go, but should we take any questions from, while we have all of our partners here? Any questions related to the event? The next are some policy things we're going to take up, but I guess raise your hand and we'll be willing to take questions. You may want to come to the podium though so it can be heard. Any questions out in the audience? Mr. Griffith, a representative, if you'd like to come forward. Sorry, that's turned around. I'm not quite sure.
I can talk loud. I want to reiterate a lot of what's being said here already about the community we live in and the kind of people we have and the volunteers that we've had that have stepped in. One of the things that I'm concerned about, very concerned about, are poor folks we have here in town. Those that don't have a way to get places, those that can't get to the Mark, those that can't get to the county health center or the community health center. I'm concerned about housing for them. I had heard that the Board of Realtors is going to get together and try and figure out something we can do with that. But those people 190 people that were in Hawthorne apartments that were displaced, can't go back. Many of them have gone to their families and are with them. The others, I don't know where they are. And I think I know we are still partly in response, but we're moving towards recovery. And as we move towards that recovery piece, being able to find places for them. Many of these people live on Jackson Street, live on Marshall Street. They either don't know where to go or they are afraid to go. Many of them, and I'm concerned about them because they've lost everything. Most of those people are renting, and don't have insurance, and they lost virtually everything that they have. So I know we're trying to address, and we're still early on in the response and recovery for this, but those are so often the forgotten people. And I don't want them to be forgotten. I want us to remember who they are. And if we've got to go out to Jackson Street, we've got to go out to those streets, and we've got to go door to door and lead them to a place where they can get some help, then that's what we need to do. Those are some concerns that I have.
Thank you, Representative. I know there's, like you mentioned, the immediate needs in the shelters and some displaced people and families. And then, we almost look 2 days out, 2 weeks out, and 2 years out. We're looking at kind of all the, and those kind of things. So housing is something that's definitely been brought up many times, and we'll get a coordinated effort to make sure all the partners are able to assist in any way they can.
Well, y'all have done a great job in this community, and that's one reason why I love living here, because we do come together. We are a family, and the faith-based community has really stepped up to make a difference, as they have in most of the disasters I've been deployed to. But I just want to thank everybody here, especially on this side of the room.
Thank you, Representative. Any other questions from the audience? Let's see, I'm going to run down a couple of things. Yes. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Bushman. Yes, Mr. Kroll?
Perhaps in just closing, I think we want to make sure that we thank all the homeowners and residents for their patience and understanding as we go through a lot of work associated with the magnitude of this event. And then also staff has done a great job, all the departments, and just following through on everything.
Absolutely. Big thank you to everyone. I've a couple of announcements. Oh, Councilman Fitzwater.
Well, just to add to the thank yous, I know the media has done an amazing job of covering this event. They have done an incredible job of keeping our community informed of what's going on. I mean, not only the weather department, but the folks that have reported the activities. So I would just like to give them a shout out too and say thank you for helping us get the word out to folks.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And I have a couple of announcements to make. One is for some upcoming events. Kids Fest for Saturday's been canceled. Prison tours, I see we have CVB Director Diane Gillespie here. CVB tours have been canceled, I would say indefinitely, because we're not sure when they'll resume. Concert Inside the Walls for Saturday night is moved from the prison since that suffered significant damage, so that will be at the Jefferson City J.C.'s Fairgrounds Saturday night. They are asking to take donations, monetary or items for tornado relief, and tickets are available at concertinsidethewalls.com. I do want to close my announcements with mentioning jeffersoncitymo.gov. That is a very key area to get information. I know maybe some people that are out in the affected areas may not have access, but we do, and we can share it and get it to them. So jeffersoncitymo.gov has links for United Way, for relief, for victim relief, for volunteer opportunities. It has legal assistance documentation for people who need help with that. It has information about the mark. It has the debris removal information. It has information to help people to avoid scams and avoid unethical business practices. And then also, there's been a Community Lost and Found, which is hosted by Missouri River Regional Library to host the Community Lost and Found for debris and things, or things that have been mixed up and blown away, blown around to different areas. So those are all on jeffersoncitymo.gov. So highly recommend that we are aware of that and share that information with others. And in fact, it's updated almost by the day as these new press releases are going out. So we have kind of that one central area that we can put all that information on. So any further questions? If not, we're going to move on to item 4, bills introduced. Okay, bills introduced 2019-16.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri establishing a reduced building permit fee for tornado-affected properties.
Mr. Sanders?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This bill would permit us until September 1st of this year to issue building permits for 1- and 2-family residential dwellings for just the amount of $25. That would be only to the owner of the property. and this would help hopefully rebuild the community, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. And I know we also have a guest that would like to speak on that, so we'll invite Mrs. Donna Dietz from Historic City Jefferson. All right, Gail's going to take care of that for you.
That's okay, yeah.
Well, we need to make sure.
Madam Mayor, all we wanted to do was share that if you pass this particular bill tonight, Historic City of Jefferson Board of Directors has voted, we will put the money up for all of the residential permits for building up to, I think we figured it out, about 250 of them, about $6,200. So we'll get that covered for you. We just need to work out with the city how to go about getting that paid so the folks aren't having to pay it and get reimbursed. But we'll go ahead and cover that.
Wow, well, that is very generous, and thank you. And Donna, while you're here, I have to give you all a plug because this is a big deal that you're doing. So if the community or people want to join Historic City of Jefferson, how do they do that?
They can go to our website, they can call me personally, and we'll get them the membership information. We've got a GoFundMe account out there for Historic City of Jefferson. We're also doing donations on our website and on Facebook and so forth that we can apply monies for this and for other things that we're trying to do around the historic areas to help recoup the losses up there.
All right, give us your number.
573-619-4377.
Okay, well, I would encourage people to, it's a great organization to support, and it shows that you all are putting those funds back into the community. We're very thankful for that. Thank you. Councilman Hussey?
Madam Mayor, I would ask for a suspension of the rules to have this bill third read and voted on at this meeting.
Thank you. Are there any objections to suspend the rules? Seeing none, we'll take up 2019-16.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri establishing a reduced building permit fee for tornado-affected properties.
And any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Fitzwater.
Aye.
Graham. Hensley.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Kimna.
Aye.
Mahalovich. Prather. Schreiber. Ward. Wiseman.
Bill passes. 2019-17.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri authorizing a permit for temporary housing for tornado-affected properties.
Mr. Sanders?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Like the previous bill, this bill would, until September 1st of this year, allow us to issue temporary housing permits for property owners where their principal dwelling has been damaged by the storm and they have a building permit so that they plan on rebuilding. It would allow them to bring a recreational vehicle, camper trailer, allow them to hook it to the utilities as appropriate based on their trailer or their RV until 180 days or until their construction was complete. It would also allow us to extend that if they are making good progress for another 180 days. And with that, once again, that's only for the property owners whose residential house dwelling got damaged in the storm. I'd be glad to answer any questions on this.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilman Hussey?
Madam Mayor, I would ask for a suspension of the rules to allow for third reading of this bill.
Any objections? Seeing none, we will take up 2019-17.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri authorizing a permit for temporary housing for tornado-affected properties.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Graham. Hensley.
Aye.
Hussey.
Aye.
Kimna.
Aye.
Mahalovich. Prather. Schreiber. Ward. Wiseman. Fitzwater.
Aye.
Motion bill passes. Well, that's all the business we have today. We appreciate everyone taking the time to be here. It's been quite a week in Jefferson City, but we are strong and we're going to get through it. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.